It's going to be the third chapter of Rage in the story of Moses. See, influence is a favor from God. Okay, sometimes we glorify leadership not for influence but affluence. See, sometimes we glorify leadership for affluence and not influence. We glorify leadership sometimes for being seen. We want to glorify the leadership that has like I said before, the biggest churches that can sit up here and have the most people. But the affluence, the ones that make a big difference, with God, the ones that you get in God's word, that's the leadership that we should be glorified. If you're going to glorify somebody, then you should be glorified the influences. Okay, the ones not the ones that want to be seen because they have a big church or they can preach all this and everything else and whatnot. Like I said, you can do all this preaching, but you're not teaching anything. Okay, and we glorify the wrong leadership sometimes, just to be seen in the limelight. Okay, and we know we have a lot of people that just want to be seen in the limelight. All right, and when you want to be seen in the limelight, that's what you get: affluences and not influences. When God gives you influence, he gives you favor with God. When you get influence, you get favor with God. All right. And a lot of people don't realize that. People think that when you just influence is just a word that we use, but that goes a lot deeper than that. Influence is when you get favor from God. I'm talking about the influence from God, not from man, but the influence from God. Because see, man wants take credit for everything, but this is influence coming from God, not from man. A lot of us want to go into positions that God never gave to you. Okay, here I'm gonna say this again. A lot of us want to go into positions that God never gave to you. Okay, positions that you don't deserve, that came from man and not from God. Hear what I'm saying? Positions that you didn't deserve, that came from man and not from God. And we see that all the time. When you have favor with God, God will remove things. God will move things. Hear what I'm saying? And this is very important. When you have favor with God, God will move things because influence and favor comes from God. When you have influence for God's people, okay, when you give them God's word, influence for God's people, Satan will always put an attack on you. And I'm going to get into this a little bit. You can't have influence over God's people and don't think that you're not going to get some attack from Satan. Anytime you go into Satan's realm, you're going to get an attack coming from Satan, because Satan is not going to let you just walk into his realm and preach God's word and you don't think you ain't going to get attacked from it. It's not going to happen like that. Okay? He's going to stop you from sending God's word out. And we all know that, because how many of us sit up here and start preaching on God's word and everything else, and Satan will put an attack on you? If there is no influence on God's word, then Satan is not worrying about you. Hear what I'm saying? If you're talking God's word and there's no influence on God's word, Satan is not worrying about you. You're no threat to him. Okay? He's not worrying about you because it's not coming from God. Okay? And a lot of us, we hear this. See, Satan knows God's word just as well as we do. He'll sit up and put forth prophets and everything out there, just like, when he's the opposite of God. And Satan will sometimes put things out there that make it sound like God that's not. Okay? But when that happens, Satan ain't worrying about you and whatnot because you're no threat to him. Satan is not worrying about you because you are no threat to him. Okay? Satan will always go after the person who's threatening his kingdom. I'll say this again. Satan will always go after the person who's threatening his kingdom. What is the kingdom? His kingdom? Earth. This world we live in is Satan's kingdom. He runs this crazy place. This is why all the chaos and stuff is going on here. When you go into Satan's camp to influence people for God, okay, Satan will send every demon in hell to stop you. And we know that's so true. When you influence people for God, you have favor and power. Hear what I'm saying on this. When you influence people for God, you have favor and power. But when you influence people just to be seen, you have no favor or power. Okay? 3 things that you should have. You should, and this is going to work. The first thing is lead, being a leader. Okay? To be a leader, you have to. The second thing, you have to learn. You can't lead without learning. Okay, so the first thing is leader. You have to learn how to lead. The second thing is learn. You have to learn to be a leader. And the third thing is a legacy. To have all this, you have the legacy. See, Moses had a legacy. When at the end and whatnot, we all know who Moses was. We know what he did. Moses had a legacy. Okay, to be a leader, you have to have vision. Okay, and we deal with this on a regular basis. All right. When you have vision, without vision, you have division, and we know that to be a true fact. Without vision, we have division. Okay, you cannot have two different visions if you are a leader. You really can't. See, if you're the leader of a church, leader of a business, leader of a school, okay, you are the leader. Hear what I'm saying? You are the leader. The person that's working under you is there to help you out. Okay, they can give you their vision. Okay, they can sit up here and try to help you out on your vision. But you can't have two different visions trying to be a leader, because when you have two different visions coming in to try to be a leader, there's going to be division. Okay, you can't have it. That's why you have a leader. When you become president, you don't have two presidents. You have a president and you have a vice president. And the reason why you have a vice president, because the vice president is supposed to help the president with the things that has to be carried out. The vice president don't tell the president, not supposed to tell the president what to do. The president is supposed to tell the vice president, I need A and B done. Let's get this done. That's what a leader does. Okay, it's not the job of the vice president to take over the president's job. And yet and still we see that every day. We see that in jobs. We see that in churches. We see that in places, workplaces and everything. You always got the people that's under trying to take over the people that's the leader. Okay, and if you are the leader, then you're supposed to have a vision. All right, because the two different visions from other people brings division. I said that before. That's why there's different two different visions from other people brings division. You have to have favor with God and man. Okay, a lot of us think that we just need to have favor from God. But when you sit up here and you operate in influence, you have to have favor from God and man. See, we keep forgetting that we deal with a spiritual realm and we're also dealing with a natural realm. Okay, God is the spiritual realm. Man is the natural realm. You get favor and influence from God, which you definitely need. But you also have to have favor and influence with man. You cannot sit up here and get man to do something for you if you don't have some kind of influence or favor with man. Because if you don't, they're not going to listen to you. They're not going to follow you. I don't care what you preaching and whatnot. God can't use you when you don't have influence with man too. You got to have influence and favor with man too, not just from God. A lot of people think just because I have favor with God that I'm good and I don't need favor from man because God will give me that. That's not true. God gives you favor and influence on a spiritual realm, but God also allows favor and influence with man on a natural realm. And you have to have the both, because if you don't, God can't use you. How can God use you when you don't have no favor or influence with man? They're not going to listen to you. They're not going to follow you. They're not going to do what you're going to. So you have to have them both. And a lot of people don't understand that. Okay? If you have favor and influence with God, but not with man, like I said before, God cannot use you. You need to have the favor of both, because you will have no effect on man if you don't have favor and influence. Hear what I'm saying on this again. You will have no effect on man if you have no favor and influence with man. We see everybody want to always go spiritual. You can't always go spiritual. There is a spiritual realm and there's a natural realm, and you have to have them both. And yet and still we always want to either go too far to the right or too far to the left. You can't have the spiritual without the natural, and you can't have the natural without the spiritual. They go hand in hand. That's just the way it is. See, Moses had to learn how to lead. And that's the problem with a lot of our leaders these days. Everybody wants to be a leader, but nobody wants to learn how to lead. See, Moses had this, let me put it this way. Moses went from the palace and had to learn how to run a country, a state, the whole thing. He was in charge of everything, ran everything. He had to learn to be a leader from the palace. Then God removed him and put him to sheep. He had to learn to control the sheep, how to run the sheep. Then God took him from the sheep and he made him the leader over the Israelites. He had to learn how to be a leader to the Israelites. He had to learn to be a leader. Okay? And see, a lot of our leaders don't want to learn. They think that they already know everything because they got the degrees and they got everything going on and whatnot. So they don't need nobody needs to teach them anything. And this is why they fail. Because they got so much pride, they got so much dignity and everything else and whatnot that they're not learning to lead. You have to learn how to lead. And if you don't learn how to lead, you are no good for God. You're really not. Moses had to learn how to lead. So if Moses had to learn how to lead, what makes you think that if God knew that Moses had to learn how to lead, what makes you think that you're better than Moses and that God don't know no better? So those people that don't want to learn how to lead, you ain't going nowhere. You'll never learn anything. God can't use you when you don't learn how to lead. Okay, it comes with a instruction book. I put it that way. You have to learn to lead. Okay, and a lot of us don't want to. And once you learn how to learn to lead, that's where your legacy comes in. Your legacy comes in when you learn to lead, because now you develop something that lasts for a lifetime, that people will remember the things that you did, the difference that you made, the people, that lives that you touched. That's what Moses had to do. And what makes man think that he's any better? See, God already knew all of this and whatnot, and yet we still have leaders that still don't want to learn how to lead. Okay, and this is why they're not going to go nowhere. This is why they're going to keep failing. Okay, take a word out of the Bible and with Moses. And if you read Moses, the story of Moses, you'll see that he had to learn how to lead the Israelite. And once you learn that you have to learn to lead, it will make your life a lot better. God can operate in you. He can use you in a mighty way. But that's how God works. That's why I said our lives intertwine with Moses in so many different ways. And that's why I put this out there. There's going to be another 3-part series on this. I'm going to get a lot deeper in this. But this is the first of these 3 parts of the first of one series. I'm going to get into another series. And it's going to be probably in the next couple of days or whatever. But there's going to be another 3-part series on this. And this is the story of Moses, and it's called Rage.